Hello and welcome to the pod. I'm Nathan Fink,
I'm Jasmine Torres Allen, and this is New Hampshire Family Now,
a show about building family in the Granite State. Today on the season 4 finale of the podcast, Jasmine and I reflect on 2024 and the many incredible conversations we've had, and later speaker, author, and executive coach Dr. Keith Edwards discusses the science of gratitude, and then I put it into practice. Hey, how are you?
Good. Thank you for the nice call.
Today's show was brought to you by Service Credit Union. You go beyond for your family. That's why Service Credit Union goes beyond for you. Get more for your money, reach milestones sooner, and plan for the future you've earned. Service Credit Union will support you every step of the way to go further than you ever imagined. If you're driven to go beyond, you belong with Service Credit Union. Visit servicecu.org to start your journey today. This podcast was also brought to you by Family Support New Hampshire. Family Support New Hampshire is NH's coalition of family resource centers and family strengthening programs that exist to ensure Granite State families have access to resources so both caregivers and children can succeed, because supported families are strong families. To find a family resource center near you, visit www.fsnh.org. Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Nathan Fink.
I'm Jasmine.
And this is the season 4 finale of the podcast, a year where we've been through a lot.
Oh my gosh.
We've covered so much ground in this year. Everything from the power of family to the conundrum that is childcare to mental health to fatherhood to kinship care and AI, fostering.
Yeah.
We've been through it because it's been some sort of year.
It's been a crazy year. It's been a long one.
So let's do highlights. Actually highlights and lowlights.
Ooh.
Right. So here's what we're going to do. Personal highlights.
Okay.
Lowlights, and then one hope.
Ooh. Okay.
All right.
All right.
So do you need time to think?
Like personal, like.
All right. I'll do mine while you're thinking.
Yes.
Okay. You know how you and your partner kind of go in these like ellipses where you're on the dark side of each of your moons?
Yes.
Okay. Recently, my wife and I came around again, and we're in this really great overlap period.
Ooh, the sweet spot.
The sweet spot in the sun of each other's like personality and love. And so I would say that's what I would put up as my high, is just having kind of that gratitude that's where we are.
Ooh.
Low light is, I think, probably sometime in May, June, I went through some really like difficult mental health struggles where I didn't know what was happening to me. Anxieties.
Yeah, where they were just heightened.
Yeah. And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't put a finger on what was going on with me.
Okay.
My hope is for 2025 that I remember what matters. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
what matters, my value structure for the year, because I'm hoping for 2025 that I just reprioritize and really put relationships and family at the top.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay,
That's
now
fantastic.
I trademarked all of those.
I can't take them.
You can't take it. Otherwise, there'll be a
take 'em.
cease and desist.
Oh, no. Big personal highlight for me, I would say, is, it's funny. We started this season premiere with what's the word of the year? What's the word? And I think I made it to the end of the year with clarity.
Really?
Yeah, I think I made it to the end of the year with clarity, because now I understand a little bit more about what my value structure is. And when I didn't really have one, or it was kind of shaky at first, and I just didn't know how to kind of piece it together, and I needed a lot of clarity. And I remember the first episode of this season, we were talking about how I needed clarity this year, and that was my word. And I feel like I found that. So that's
I have to ask about that, because it's so startling, because I think my word was like pimento cheese. And so clarity to the end. Tell me how clarity led to where you are right now.
Clarity, like the clarity I've received this year, has brought me to a point where I've been able, I feel like, to reflect on my parenting, on myself, and my career enough to understand I had a shaky value structure. I thought I had a value structure that was strong, but things change over time with your family, and as transitions happen, and I've done a lot of transitioning this year, like those values get challenged. changed, and they change and they evolve over time. And so for me, I feel like I now have some clarity going into the new year, and it feels
Beautiful.
nice.
So now we're going to go to low light.
Low light. Okay. Low light. I think I really struggled this year. Kind of like you. I had mental health struggles. I had a really deep depression. And I think I even bring it back to like that episode that we talked about the ocean and how hermit crabs.
I thought of you.
Yeah.
Be the ocean.
Yeah. Be the ocean, right? Like where, you know, the ocean has its lows and it has its highs too, you know? And so I had some really deep lows this year, but it was the first time that I was in a low and I recognized that I was in a really in a low spot. And it was the first time that I ever reached out to my community, you know? And so when normally I'd just deal with it on my own and hope that the ocean goes and it keeps flowing, right? And community responded.
It's a bat signal moment.
It was. Yes, it was a bat signal moment. And I think it made me realize that I'm not such a burden, you know, like my mental health struggles aren't not such a burden on the people who want to love and care about me.
Right. It's actually a joy. It's a pleasure to wind up coming to the aid of others.
Yes.
Especially because you get to exercise your love.
Exactly. And I think sometimes, you know, sometimes we feel like a burden on other people, or our mental health struggles feel like, you know, sharing those things are a burden for other people. But I think that when you have a community that you build around yourself and you actually reach out to it, you'd be shocked at how they might respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Prior to starting this podcast, we were talking about how we build our own self-worth and value.
Ooh, yeah, that's right.
We were building it on really the hustle of being able to deliver a product.
Yes.
The fact that if I am not delivering something, I am not of value, even with your own community. Like I'm the funny one. I'm the this one.
Right. Or if you're like an advocate out in there in your community and like you're not always doing the advocacy work. Sometimes you're just being in community and being received by community. And that's okay too. You know, as someone who has been in that advocacy space, sometimes we get so lost in, you know, trying to create community for others that we realize sometimes we need community too. And that's okay.
Yeah. I remember the kinship episode that we had recorded. Alicia Angove had said to remember that even advocates need advocates.
That's right. That's exactly it. And they need community too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what community is.
And I think that sometimes we forget that like, it's not such a burden.
All right. Hope.
Oh, my biggest hope for next year. I hope to have more personal connections with my community. I want to have less social media and more personal connections. You know, I feel like a lot of the times we spend, you know, time collecting people on our LinkedIn profiles and Facebooks and Instagrams. And, you know, we think we're building maybe an online community, and those are very legitimate. But I think that for me, a big hope is that I have more personal connections with people in 2025.
That reminds me of the episode that we did with Andrew Mitchell from Northlight AI. AI approximate kind of the posturing and spaces between when we say something meaningful.
Yes. I remember, and I think I even told you, I was like, it sounded a little empty. The AI version of you guys speaking to each other, it sounded so empty and less connected. And so it didn't give me that human to human connection that you feel in the soul of conversation.
Exactly. It's funny because we're naturally falling into kind of a podcast review, but then all of a sudden I'm reminded of other episodes too, like the mental health episode and just about what it means to matter, right? Like this, I think it's called You Matter.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And This Is My Brave Performers.
I remember
really figuring out how to articulate that they matter really to themselves.
And that was such a beautiful episode, you know, and you get to hear everybody just a little bit, you know, of like how we each struggle as humans and how we need to maybe reach out to each other.
That then makes me think of the After Pride episode. And we were just talking about Lionel Lovelace.
That's right.
Who was the featured guest on that. But that one stands out to me in this conversation because I do think that there is a longing for humans to be able to identify themselves, right? Because I think that even the way we talk about this value structure, right? We think that we're valuable because of X or Y, rather than the fact that we have intrinsic value.
And I think that's something I've also learned this year is that I don't think I really need to prove my value out there. It's just one of those things where I just like being in community and connected.
And it all comes back to, I think, gratitude. You actually have to look for it, notice it.
Well, there's a song that I absolutely love that kind of sometimes reminds me that when I'm in a space of not being like grateful or in a space of gratitude, I put on this song. It's very gospel like, but the lyric kind of goes something like, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. I have this heartbeat in my chest. And sometimes that does it for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say that to myself and I'm like, oh man, I'm alive.
Gratitude is interesting for me because I've been, when somebody says gratitude, it sometimes feels forced. Okay. And I'm going to have to explain this because
elaborate on that.
I desperately want to have more gratitude in my life. But when we talk about resilience, we talk about it as a muscle,
right? That
you exercise it. And I would say I'm a resilient person. Like I do get knocked down. Gratitude is similar.
Yes. I was about to say, it's like, you're talking about resilience and gratitude. They're in the same
bucket.
Well, yeah. You have to practice gratitude like you practice resiliency.
Exactly.
Right?
And so this is the thing that I'm struggling with, because for me, even though gratitude comes from inside, I have gratitude for X. It feels like it comes to the surface and it's there and I have it. And I'm so grateful to have it in the moment, but I don't know how to make it rise. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I want it more because everything that we've talked about, we were paying gratitude for those conversations,
right?
For the things in our community, but I want to practice it more, but it feels complicated.
Yeah.
And so because I want more of it, I started to dig into it. And I came across a University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill professor of neuroscience and psychology named Andrea Hussong, who talks about this idea of the myopathy of success, that when we have success, actually, I'll quote her, our rigorous individualism, she writes, may not only overemphasize the I in our accomplishments, but also it deprives us of this critical social need for connection. In other words, when we succeed, when we have an achievement, there's some disposition in us to say, I did this.
Yes.
Right. But think about the way that plays against how we value ourselves.
Yes.
But to get over that, we need to really identify, I think, our deep cultural disposition for praise and prizing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, that's also in the way we speak, right? In language, the language that we use around even the communities in our own homes with our own families, right? Like how we, show value and gratitude with our kids. Right. And actually, I just finished writing Santa letters. And so we did Santa letters last night. And I decided this year, I was like, we're going to write to Santa what we're grateful for.
Oh my gosh.
And one kind thing that we're going to try to do this year.
All right. What's one thing that you're grateful for?
One thing.
No, wait.
One thing? I don't know. I don't know if I could do one.
Let's go 3.
I am super grateful for farmers. I know that seems like really
that did catch me by surprise.
Yeah, really left field. But I was thinking about the food that we have to eat, and like the access that we have to food security, and like, all the people who are working towards providing food security, and, farmers are part of that system. And, I think about like all the food we just consumed for Thanksgiving and like all the food we're about to consume for Christmas. And I think about all the hands and the people that it takes to make it so easy for me to go to the grocery store and get that food and be able to do those things with my family.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that's one.
Okay, what is
I know that was like a total left field one.
I feel like you do work for the Farm Bureau.
Yeah. The second one is, I'd say my community. My community has shown up so well for me, like just over the past few years, and especially this year, where I feel like I've had to lean on community a little bit more. And then the third one is I'm super, super duper grateful for you.
What?
Yes, I'm super grateful for you. I'm super grateful for you. Do you know why? Because you have this unique ability to make people's stories shine. And that is a talent and a skill. It's unique. And so I'm very, very, very grateful.
I'm going to give you a hug. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we welcome Dr. Keith Edwards. Don't go anywhere. And many thanks to the Office of Social and Emotional Wellness, or OSEW, at the NH Department of Education for sponsoring this podcast. OSEW's mission is to advance youth social emotional wellness by collaborating with federal, state, community, and family partners to implement evidence-based, data-driven, preventative, and responsive approaches to lifelong social emotional skills for New Hampshire's students. To learn more about the Department of Education, visit www.education.nh.gov. Today's show was brought to you by Bank of New Hampshire. For 193 years, Bank of New Hampshire has put customers and communities first. With the expertise to help you realize your goals, their technology makes banking easier, and the friendly faces will make you want to visit in person. Want a bank that has your back? Bank of New Hampshire are your people. For more information, visit bnh.bank or call 1-800-832-0912. Member FDIC. Today's show was also brought to you by Northeast Delta Dental. At Northeast Delta Dental, we love to see people smile. And as the leading provider of quality dental coverage for Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont, we're committed to helping entire communities smile. Whether it's through education, supporting our veterans, or giving and volunteering, we are helping make our communities even stronger. Learn more about Northeast Delta Dental at nedelta.com. We think you'll find a lot to smile about. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. For our season 4 finale, I'm thrilled to be joined by speaker, author, and coach Dr. Keith Edwards. Keith empowers better tomorrows through leadership, learning, and equity, and has more than 1,000 hours coaching college presidents, senior leaders, and independent scholars and activists as a certified executive leadership coach. He is an authentic educator, trusted leader, and unconventional scholar that has worked with hundreds of organizations, written dozens of academic articles, and several books on leadership, learning, and equity, including his most recent book, Unmasking, Toward Authentic Masculinity. Dr. Keith, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to have you. I so appreciate the work that you're doing, especially around gratitude. Gratitude is something I wrestle with personally, and we'll get into that later. But before we do, I'd love to talk about the science of gratitude, because sometimes when I think of it, I understand it as an act that I do for others, kind of to others, for their benefit, when in fact, it may change ourselves more than the recipient on the most basic level. So when I say science of gratitude, what do we mean by that?
Well, the science of gratitude, it's a lot of things, right? From psychology and what gratitude does in our bodies and in our brains, the impact it has on our behaviors and choices and how we show up as leaders, as members of families and relationships. Also, a more biological basis in the neuroscience and getting into serotonin and dopamine and neurotransmitters and neuroplasticity and how we're reshaping the brain constantly. And what does gratitude do to reshape some of that? And so we can think about that, everything from biology to psychology to social science and the way that we interact with each other. And there's just a ton of research around gratitude. You can call it appreciation. There's lots of different ways that we can think about it. But as you're saying, we've often been thought of gratitude as something we do for others. So if I thank you for having me on the podcast, is that something I'm doing for you? Yes, it is. But also expressing gratitude toward you makes me better. It makes my perspective on the world better. It makes my perspective on this conversation better, more open, more willing to see new possibilities, more creative, more open to diversity. It changes my biology in terms of my brain chemistry and neurotransmitters, but also relationally, you feel appreciated, you feel seen, and we could all use that. And then maybe you're a little bit more curious about me and what I might have to say rather than going through the script that we talked about in advance.
Right. Well, it's funny because I'm hearing now this from multiple different lenses, that even in preparation for the conversation, because, you tell me that there's a practice to gratitude. I say, okay, I should, because it is inevitably going to change something in my structure. When really in the social contract that we have in a conversation, I just change the dynamic by putting gratitude on the table, maybe first, maybe in the middle, maybe at the end, to change the course of that interaction in some capacity.
Right.
So it's inherently much bigger than the word itself.
Yeah. And I think, as we think about the science of gratitude, and I hope we'll get to some practices too, because I think that's really tangible and helpful for folks who are listening. So we talked about the science, about the biology and the brain and the psychology and how we think about it, and it changes our behaviors and our decisions and choices. If you're trying to eat healthier and you go to the fridge at lunch and go, oh, I got to lose 8 pounds and I got to make good decisions and I can't have the things that I really want. Now, how's lunch? Whereas if you go, wow, look at all the abundance in my refrigerator, I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful for the opportunities that I have. I'm really grateful for this commitment I have to my health and my well-being. What decisions do I want to make now that will further that? That's a different lunch. And you'll make different choices more in line with your aspirations and values. So there's the biology, the psychology, the decisions that you're talking about, some of the ways that we interact with each other. I think one of the fundamental shifts for me around gratitude was learning that gratitude is not an emotion or a circumstance to await. I shouldn't wait till I feel grateful. That's a very passive way to engage with the world. And I shouldn't wait till my circumstances align so I have something to be grateful for. But that gratitude is a practice that we engage in.
Right.
And Shawn Achor is a great was a Harvard researcher. Harvard researcher is impressive. He's sort of extended beyond that and written many books and been on Oprah and done lots of things. And what he really helped realign was, we think that once we're successful, we will be happy, and then we can be grateful for our success and our happiness. And he reverses that line, that really, if we practice gratitude, we will be happier. And when we are happier, we will have more success, but because we are clearer thinkers, more open to diversity, more creative, more innovative, more collaborative. So rather than success leading to happiness, leading to gratitude, let's reverse that whole chain, practice gratitude to bring more happiness into our life. And then we will have more success in our relationships and our work as leaders. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And, in fact, I look at it from a couple of different frames, one of which is the frame in myself when I'm standing, say, before the refrigerator, when I'm standing before a task that I'd rather not do. I feel it on that level. But then when we talk about it as a practice, I've been catching myself, especially around this holiday season, working with my young sons around their expressions of gratitude. And I catch myself saying, be grateful to them, when they're in this moment where gratitude is, in fact, the back end of a reward. So help me sort through that, because there's not necessarily a question, but is there a difference?
Yeah, a few years ago, I was really blessed to have 2 Buddhist monks who lived with me and taught me about gratitude. And those monks were my daughters when they were 2 and 4. And little children are brilliant, not because of what they know. Little children are brilliant because of what they don't yet know. They don't know about socialization and systems of oppression and hurts and baggage and trauma, and people will betray you and don't trust these people. They don't know all of that stuff yet. And one morning, my daughter was 2 and she was standing in front of the window. I live in Minnesota. It's winter and snow and 9 degrees here right now. And it was a light day like that. And she was looking out the window. And I thought, there must be something out there. There must be something going on. I wonder what she's curious about. And I walked up to her and I said, what are you looking at? What are you seeing? And she said, the tree is beautiful. And that was it. Like, she just sitting there in awe of this tree that wasn't doing anything. It wasn't lit up. That wasn't right. And it's winter. There's no leaves. There's just sitting there in awe of that. And we can all do that. except we have to work harder at it because we all this have, we got to get to the next thing on the calendar. I got my to-do list, I'm behind on my emails, people want me. And that just gets in the way of that ability to just have awe. As I mentioned, it's 9 degrees, but it's sunny and beautiful. And we just got a little layer of snow. And it means it's not only sunny coming down, but it's sunny coming up, and the solar energy that I get. I'm just so grateful for the cold and the blue skies and the sunshine here today, even though it's real cold. I got a shovel, right? There's all these things. These are all true, right? My problems don't go away. And I think pretending we don't have challenges or difficulties or struggles or ignoring them is actually a really terrible strategy.
Right.
But recognizing I have these challenges and struggles, and also the sun is so great today. And I think one of the practices that I get to, and we can talk more about this, is starting with celebrations. I do this with staff meetings. I do this with every meeting with my coaching clients. And if you think you're struggling, and sometimes my clients say this, I don't know what to celebrate today. It's been a rough day. It's been a rough week. But ask a 5-year-old what they're grateful for today, or what they're celebrating, or what's something new and good, or what are you appreciating? There's a million ways to ask that. And if you're having a tough day and your 5-year-old says, well, I didn't poop my pants today, that's pretty good. Well, neither did I. And I didn't really appreciate that. I didn't really celebrate. My day would have been a lot worse if that had. And so just to appreciate heated seats in my car that's 15 years old, sunshine. I've got warm tea right here. I got a lot of challenges. I'm behind on things. I got a lot of things I got to manage. I got to go to my daughter's basketball game, which is going to probably be a rough experience. And I get to go to my daughter's basketball game.
I'm glad you said that in a very basic reframing, because I think the thing that we're hungering after is then, all right, yes, I want that. I want to feel that every day in light of my challenges. And as we're talking about this, you keep referring to it as a practice, and you mentioned this idea of celebration. So I want to lean into the practice nature of it and the celebratory nature as a starting point. So let's talk about the practice. How do we start incorporating this gratitude into our lives in a system that it can be additive?
Let me tell you a quick story. I was a few years ago. It was a very cold day here in Minnesota. One of those days where the high temperature has a minus number in front of it. And our listeners who are in New England know what that's like. And our listeners who have no idea what that's like, well, good for you. But it was one of those days, and I was driving to work, and the car in front of me made a right turn, and I made a right turn, and I bumped into the car in front of me because they hadn't turned, and I thought they would. It was very cold, and we had to figure this out. And no one was really hurt, but it was just a huge hassle and a production. And I went to work, and I had an all-day meeting I didn't want to be in. I was feeling hurt and feeling marginalized and feeling unappreciated. And I went to boot up my computer, and it was taking forever. I was just so frustrated. Like, this day is just awful. Nothing is going right in this day. And I thought, well, what am I going to do while my computer's booting up? And I just thought, I'll meditate. I haven't meditated today. I'll meditate. And I do a 6-part meditation. And one part of that is gratitude. And in that meditation, I'm thankful for this moment. And then I just go back over the past 24 hours, kind of chronologically in reverse, and find as many moments to be grateful for as I can. And as I sat there, I just thought, not today. There's nothing to be grateful. It's cold. There's a car accident. My boss is a pain, all of these things. And then I thought, well, I'm getting to meditate. That's good. My coffee is really good. All right. I'm getting this time. Okay. I had a car accident and everyone's fine. That's pretty great. And when I backed up in that car accident and the person behind me smacked the back of my car and cursed at me, I didn't pin him between me and the car behind him. I'm having a great day. Just that shifted my perspective. I went from having one of the worst days of my life to having a great morning.
Right.
And all I didn't change the reality. I didn't change what happened. I didn't lie to myself. I didn't deceive myself. I just shifted my perspective a little bit. And that's what I think gratitude has the ability to do, is just be thankful for the little things. So some of the practices, I start every meeting with a form of gratitude. What's exciting? What are you looking forward to? What are you celebrating? What are you grateful for? What do you appreciate? There's lots of different ways to do it. And one of the things that happens is when you come to my meetings, Keith's going to start with gratitude. What am I going to share? I could share that. That's a little too personal. I could share that. I don't want to. I could share. Oh, that's a good one. But before you even get to my meeting, you might have thought about 8 things that you could be grateful for, and you're only going to choose one to share. Then if there's 8 of us in the meeting, you're going to hear 8 other people's gratitudes, share one of yours, and that helps generate that. And when we start with gratitude, it changes our brain, serotonin and dopamine and other neural things. And what it does is it makes us more happier, which is obvious, more healthy. We get fewer colds and they last less long. We could all use that. And we're more effective because of the creativity, the openness around us. And so it shifts. I start all my coaching conversations with celebrations. I do all my coaching calls on a 3-mile loop through my neighborhood outside. And every single one starts with, "Hi, Nathan, what are you celebrating today?" And you say something and I say something. We popcorn back 5 back and forth. And sometimes it takes 20 minutes. Sometimes it takes 90 seconds.
Right.
But so many of my clients, when I say, "Thanks for celebrating with me," and we've done that, "where would you like to put our attention today?" So often they say, "Well, I thought we were going to talk about X, but now that we've done that, I actually want to talk about this." And that short little shift in perspective. So you can start with gratitude, family dinners, meetings, conversations, calling your mom. "What's going well, Mom?" "Well, my knee hurts." "Okay, well, let's talk about that in a bit. But what is going well?" "Well, the soup I had for lunch was great. And your sister called me. And okay, well, now tell me about your knee." "Well, it hurts, but, I've got good health care and insurance, and I'm grateful for that." And it just shifts how we engage with that. You can do gratitude journaling, www, what went well today. You can do that in the morning. You can do that at night. You can integrate it into meditation like I do, or prayer practices. You can write a letter of gratitude to yourself, to a relative, a loved one. You can text, you can email, you can write them to people who are no longer here with us. There's lots of different ways to do that. But I think the key is, don't wait until you have something to be grateful for. That's a sucker's game. Find things to be grateful for. And on the days where you're having an especially hard time, those are the days where it is most important to practice and the most transformative to practice. On those no good, awful days, to find a little something to be grateful for.
Again, even the conversation around it, I'm starting to feel levity. And I wanted to kind of think more aloud on this, because I think that there is this societal predilection, and maybe this is our own culture here in the US, that really prizes individualism. And when I think of that, and I start to examine my own gratitude, like how I express it, when and where I may withhold it, because I notice myself in these interactions. And there is a part of me that is very much aware of how that plays against my cultural self, where it intersects with my own masculinity. And this is, of course, with your book, Unmasking Towards Authentic Masculinity, that talks at length about external expectations around masculinity, as well as the insecurities that might be playing inside of me. And when I think of gratitude, there is something sitting on my shoulder that can prompt this internal criticism. That's something like, you couldn't do this yourself, could you? Somebody had to help you. And if not, you would have made it across the finish line. And I'm hoping that you can help me wrestle with that. How does, say, gratitude then intersect with kind of subsets of our culture, maybe at large, and masculinity to really get in the way of this incredible expression?
Yeah. I love that question. There's a lot there. But you even pointed to a really accessible gratitude. So on those no good, awful days, who made your close? If you're depressed and on a number of different medications, someone created those medications. The notion that we are here on our own is a myth. Someone changed your diapers. Someone changed mine. Many people have been graceful with me when I didn't earn it. And so I think it gives us something to be grateful for, right? And I think the collectivist approach versus individualistic, I think there's lots of cultural connections. I was just, the most recent book I read was Serviceberry, which is by an indigenous biologist and author, Robin Wall Kimmerer. And the Serviceberry is a very short book. I listened to it. It's only 2 hours to listen to, but about the serviceberry and what nature and science and indigenous perspectives can teach us about abundance and gratitude and gift economies and new ways of thinking about that. And I think I have been socialized to see scarcity. What do you have that I don't? who's got a nicer car than me. We always notice who's got a nicer car. People notice who doesn't have a nice car. We always notice the people who have a bigger, nicer house, but not as those who don't have a house. So how do we approach the world as though there's enough? And how would we want to share that? And that might be food. It might be money. It might be time. It might be capacity to listen. My 12-year-old was having a real tough time this morning, and my partner wasn't really able to listen because she was in a hurry and had to get on a meeting and had to go, and I could. And that was the abundance that I had to give. I could not rush her through her complaints about her school and her friends and her teachers. I could listen. I could really be there. And so how do we think about our collective nature? There's always something to be grateful for there, right? Who has helped you get where you are today? And I think it is this notion of gratitude as countercultural or radical, for me, makes it a little delightful. Like, I'm not supposed to be grateful for the people who made my clothes, but what else am I not supposed to do, right? So how do we sort of push back against that? And I think it really opens up some of those possibilities. I mean, we've talked a lot about parenting, but my kids leave the house and go off into a black hole every day. And how many people care for them, look out for them, watch them, tend to them that I will never even know about. From their friends to classmates to teachers to bus drivers to convenience store clerks to whatever. There's a lot of people making my kids safe, okay, tended to today, even if they're having really tough days. Right?
Yeah. This makes me think of a million things, including that notion that you were talking about with your children about embedding gratitude into our systems, the delivery of human services, right? For humans, by humans. So having a gratitude is actually a systemic component of a successful delivery system, I think is really, really interesting.
Well, and I think one of the ways we can shift from individual to collective is rather than saying you should practice, which is an external expectation, and we often push back. How do we make it a part of the routine? When I was a camp counselor, we did warm fuzzies at every meal. People would write little notes and put them in the thing, and you'd get them handed out. Why don't we do that at work? We might call it something different. We might do something. We might put some structures on it. But I think sometimes we're so afraid to do things. Can I just say, gratitude is the entry level. The advanced level is acknowledgement.
So let's explore that then, because now we're striating by tiers in terms of what this means. So what levels are there? And I guess, how do you transcend through them?
Yeah. So when we're practicing gratitude, we often express gratitude for what people have done. So Nathan has invited me to this podcast. You are hosting this. You are asking questions. Thank you for all of that. That feels pretty good. The next level is gratitude for who people are. And that's where you say, you are blank, and then shut up and stop talking. And it looks like, Nathan, you are so thoughtful. Gratitude, just notice how often you express gratitude for what people do. Thanks for putting the dishes away. Thanks for picking up the kids. Thanks for following through on that report. Thanks for holding that person accountable, which is great. And we should do that. The next level, though, is you are so dedicated. And the shorter, the better. Notice how it feels even uncomfortable, feels a little intimate. And what we tend to do is, you're so dedicated. I mean, and we ruin it and just really stay. So if you want to up that in this season, or to someone who's really important to you, see if you can move from gratitude for what they do to deep appreciation for who they are.
Now, I'm certain that people are going to want to learn more about you, your perspective, and some of the services that you offer. If a person wants to learn more, where can they go?
Yeah, we'll make it so easy. KeithEdwards.com. And if you go to KeithEdwards.com, you can find lots of blog posts, including the science of gratitude and celebrations and some other things that we've kind of touched on. The thing that you would be really great is, while you're there, everything on there is free. One of the free things, you can sign up for my newsletter, which is Empowering Better Tomorrows. And every Tuesday, you'll get my latest thinking about leadership, learning, and equity. And once a month, I send a bonus email with the best of what I'm learning, contributing and enjoying, which are podcasts like this, articles, the things that I'm doing, and then also maybe music that is inspiring me, or poetry or art or nature, or a TV show that is just wowing me. And so that's all free, and you can find that there. But the easiest way to find me is keithedwards.com. And if folks want to contact me there, there's a little contact form, and no one else sees that. So if you can be as personal as you want, it just comes directly to me.
Well, Keith, it has been absolutely wonderful to speak with you today.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on and being who you are.
Thank you, Nathan. And to those listening, gratitude is a practice.
Hey, Jasmine?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So I was going through the podcast, and I don't think I clearly articulated just how much I appreciate you.
Oh, that's so nice. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. That's it. Go back to your regular scheduled program. I thought you should know.
Thanks. Hey, what's up?
Hey, so I'm just calling to tell you how much I appreciate you.
Oh,
Something I should say more often.
thanks, buddy. You did today.
I just did a podcast on gratitude, and I just thought, I don't tell you how much I appreciate you enough.
Oh, brother. Well, thank you. And I got to say, the feeling is mutual.
Well, that's not why I called, but just so you know.
This podcast was brought to you by Nixon Peabody, who delivers exceptional legal services for clients in the community by combining high performance, an entrepreneurial spirit, deep engagement, and an unwavering commitment to a culture of collaboration, diversity, and humanity. Nixon Peabody works with universities, hospitals, and nonprofits of every size to maximize impact. For more information, visit nixonpeabody.com. Today's show was brought to you by the Couch Family Foundation. As an organization that supports healthy children, strong families, and vibrant communities, the Couch Family Foundation is proud to sponsor the 12th Annual Strengthening Families Summit. The Couch Family Foundation is working with partners like New Hampshire Children's Trust to ensure that all New Hampshire children from birth to age 5 have access to equitable, high-quality, affordable early care and education. For more information, visit couchfoundation.org. New Hampshire Family Now is listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. Listen wherever you get your podcasts, or ask your smart speaker to play New Hampshire Family Now.